What is going on, everybody, and welcome to the Thursday edition of Stochastic NHL Strategy Show. I am your host, Josh Harris, back with a 9-game slate here. Last night, 4-gamer. I fell asleep so early. I missed most of the action there. 4-gamers or whatever. Tuesday was that big 200K to first. Bad showing for me. At least an NHL regular one. I don't know if he's on Twitter or where he's at. Was it Haas the Best or Haas the Beast or something like that? He's a regular name. You kind of like to see regulars win that money. So if we weren't going to do it, hopefully it would have been one of you. If it wasn't, one of the NHL regulars would have been our third option. So silver lining, I guess. Always hate to fail to convert ticket equity, but it is what it is. Can't hit the nuts unless you play tonight. So we're back. Decent GPPs here tonight. This is a interesting slate. The top line in the top 2 stack is not who you would expect. So this is going to be a little bit of a wild slate. Helping me to break it down, as always, some Cliffy. How's it going?
Yeah, not too bad. I didn't do well on Tuesday either. Went Winnipeg and Nashville. I told you when the slate started that my other lineup was Montreal and San Jose. I don't even think I still would have, like, Montreal did really well. They're one of the best lines on the night, but San Jose did nothing. So I don't even think I would have done that well. Kind of, obviously you never want to lose, but today is another day. Last night was interesting. The Sabres got their brains beat in 7-3. Yeah, that team is something else. And then I sent out a tweet last night at about 11:45 my time, so like 10:45 Eastern, saying time for one of my favorite activities, which is watching a Montreal Canadiens puck drop at 11:35 p.m. and then falling asleep at the second intermission, which is exactly what happened. And thank God I did, because I missed that godforsaken third period where they had a 2-goal lead with 9 minutes left and blew that lead and then lost 4 seconds into overtime. I would have been so mad. I would have not slept last night. So thankfully I fell asleep at the second intermission. 9 games here tonight. I mean, it's the last game we're going to talk about, but the late night hammer is Chicago going into San Jose. And think of how bad the Blackhawks are, that the San Jose Sharks, after trading Fabian Zetterlund and Jake Wallman, are still favored at home against Chicago. Like, oh my God. Obviously, we'll get to that game when we get to it. Couple key injury notes, that we'll have to get to through the slate. Might be some big game time decisions tonight. So could be some, crunch time swapping that we have to do, but all in all, not a bad 9-gamer. Kind of wish it was an 8-gamer without that late game, but it is what it is. We'll see how things go tonight.
Yeah, you don't really realize how crazy every fan base is until something like last night happens. If you Twitter search Lane Hutson's name, just don't. That's a set play.
Listen, he probably should have been aware of that. For anybody that didn't see it, it was 3-on-3 overtime. It was the opening face-off. All 3 guys were lined up at normal forward positions on the overtime. Hudson was across from Brandon Montour. Seattle pushed the puck ahead on the face-off. Montour went right around Hudson, had a breakaway, scored in 4 seconds. Obviously not great. You don't want that. You still had a 2-goal lead with 9 minutes left. And I tweeted about, or posted on Blue Sky, I guess, this morning about it. Like, the power play goal that Montreal allowed, it was 100% on Nick Suzuki. And don't get me wrong, Suzuki's been phenomenal for Montreal this year. I genuinely think he should have been in heavy consideration for the Four Nations Cup team. He probably should be at the Olympic team. He's been that good. He really messed up on that power play goal against. And if he doesn't mess up, they don't score the power play goal, it's still 4-2 with 6 minutes left. They probably win the game, and they don't go to overtime. So You never want to see that from Hudson, but it never should have gotten to that point to begin with.
The Yanni Neiman goal, or Nyman, he's a large mammal. he's going to be fun. But yeah, let's get into this slate since, we should probably talk about it. Before we do, 150 of you watching on YouTube and Twitter. Just thank you guys for sticking with us all season. You guys rock. If you do want to go premium, you can click that Stochastic link. You can use Stochastic 15. That'll get you 15% off any week or month of your first subscription. I'm going to assume sometime late this week. Well, it's already late this week. I'm going to assume sometime middle to late next week, MLB subscriptions will drop. So if you're looking to go premium for MLB and want to support us that way, you can do it through the link. When they do drop, we'll try to get you a nice promo code to get you some more off, since you guys have been awesome all year. If you do want to get into the sports betting thing, you can hit the Odd Shopper link, sign up for Portfolio EV. But for now, let's talk about some hockey. And let's start with the Florida Panthers with a 3 total heading into Toronto. The Maple Leafs have a 2.6 total. Chris Tanev, a game time decision tonight. That will help their blue line some. As it stands, Toronto is going Matthews, Marner, Nyes, Nylander, Tavares, Yarncroc, Lawton, McMahon, Domi. Florida going Reinhart, Barkov, Verhaeghe, Bennett, Samoskevich, Rodriguez, Lundell, Lusterine, Bachquist. Now, I don't particularly love either side here for a multitude of reasons. I'll start on the Toronto side. It's a 9-game slate. Toronto generally sends out Matthews against top comp. It's not like a super hard match or anything, but they're going to see that Barkov line a fair bit. And I don't really want to spend over $20K on a 9-game slate going out against the Barkov line. That's just, not my cup of tea. Excuse me. In MME, they do have an 11.4% top 2 stack, 5.1% projected ownership, and they are fully correlated. I think, the more lineups you make, the more likely I'd be getting to some Toronto one here. In single entry, I don't like stacking against the Barkov line for all the struggles they've had offensively in the 300-minute sample this season. 2 expected goals against per 61 actual. So it's just like meat grinder stuff. I'm out on them in single entry. 20 max, I'd have a little. 150 max, I'd have a little. Toronto 2, Tavares and Nylander don't have great numbers. I can't imagine Calle Yarncroc helps that. They were really good with Pacioretty. And that's the only winger they've been really good with when they've been together. They're fine because they're 15,300, and that Bennett, Samoskevich, Rodriguez line isn't as good as defensively as the Barkov line. For 15,300, there's other lines in better matchups that I prefer. So that's kind of MME only for me. Dipping down to the third line, I guess Lawton, McMahon, Domi. I'm not super thrilled about that at all. But if you are power play stacking Tampa or Edmonton or something, you could throw that in the basket of 2-mans you can pluck from. The Florida side is a bit more interesting. Reinhart, Barkov, Verhaeghe, $100 more than Toronto one. Same top 2 stack, a little less ownership. Now, their expected goals have been creeping up recently. It's still under 3. If I had to play a line in single entry, and I don't think I'm going to play either side of this game in single entry, it would be Florida 1 over Toronto 1, just because the Leafs aren't as good defensively. They have a bad penalty kill. So that would be the deciding factor for me. 20,400 really isn't my thing. Again, Cliffy says it a lot, and I'm sure maybe he'll say it again. You leave off Verhaeghe, Yadin, Samoskevich, you save $2,000. It's 18,400. It's a unique 3-man. It's a good power play matchup. So if I was going to do Florida, that would be some sort of power play stack for me. Again, if you need super cheap 2-man, I'm fine with Lundell, Lusterine, 2-man. Florida 2, their 14K, I guess is fine. Bennett, Samoskevich, 2-man. I would leave off Erod and add in like a Barkov or Reinhardt. I think if I was doing anything with Florida, it'd be some sort of Florida power play stack.
Yeah, I mean, I'm out on stacking the Leafs. They have the lowest home total. Like, it's a 9-game slate. They have the lowest home total, and the top line's over 20K. Like, I'm just not doing that. One off Austin Matthews, perfectly fine. He's still the highest projected center on the board here tonight per Stochastic, just slightly higher than Celebrini. And, Matthews still has produced against – he hasn't played Florida this year. I think they played one game, and he missed it. It is when he was out injured. 4 games against Florida last year, 18 shots and 2 goals. So, like, he can still definitely produce against them, but I'm not stacking Toronto. On the Florida side, it is a pretty good power play matchup. I still do wonder if the power play is going to be as good with Ekblad as it is or with Seth Jones series it was with Ekblad. I have my questions there, but the thing is Florida's drawing a lot of power play opportunities over the last 5 weeks. They're at 3.3 power play opportunities per game. It's the second most in the league. I believe they're tied for 6th going back to January 1st. So they do draw their fair share of power play opportunities. The Leafs have been taking more penalties, which is not something that the Leafs typically do. But since January 1st, 11th most time shorthanded per game. Over the last 5 weeks, 8th most. So, like, Florida might get 3-4 power play opportunities here tonight. So I don't mind focusing on the power play guys because the Toronto penalty kill is still bad. And it's not – I tweeted about this earlier. I think maybe it was over on Blue Sky. Like, all that stuff blends together. But, Craig Berube, the coach for Toronto – the one thing about the St. Louis Blues under Craig Berube, when they were really good, like the second half of 2019 and then the next 3 years, this team broke expected goals models way more than any other team by goals for higher than expected goals for and goals against lower than expected goals against. Whatever Berube did with St. Louis back then, they broke models to a higher degree, far more than any other team in the league. Toronto's kind of been doing the same thing, at least over like the last 3 months. So I wonder, like, the second line for Toronto, for example, has bad defensive numbers at 5-on-5. But those bad defensive numbers kind of lead to like league average goals against numbers. So they're really not that bad. So I do wonder if it's not happening again just with a new team. So I'm not super excited about Florida here. I would focus on the 4 power play guys, Reinhardt, Barkov, Bennett, Samoskevich, because it is a really good power play matchup. The one guy I would absolutely have in those lineups is Barkov, but I think this is a case where you can make a case for Bennett because whatever the Leafs are defensively, they still do give up shots. Now, whether they're low quality shots or whatever, or lower quality than we think, 1.5 point DK points is still 1.5 DK points, no matter where you shoot the puck from. So I think Sam Bennett, probably given his shot volume tendency, is a good player to add. But I would focus on the 4 Florida guys here in this game. It's really the only thing I have interest in from either side.
Boston Bruins with a 2.3 total heading into Ottawa. The Senators have a 3.1 total. The Senators are the biggest favorite on the slate. Boston has the lowest total on the slate. I'm out on Boston. If you want a one-off Pasternak, he still leads the stochastic projections by any skater. That's fine. Other than that, I'm out on Boston. I'm not super thrilled about Ottawa either. Like, Stützle, Tkachuk, Giroux, not creating a goddamn thing. Cousins, Batherson, Perron, pretty bad. Like, Batherson and Perron have been bad this season. Pinto, Amadio, Grieg, not creating a damn thing. So, like, Tkachuk one off, some sort of power play stack is fine, but I'm not running out of my way to play either side of this game.
I mean, I get what you're saying about Ottawa not really creating a lot. This is still a really bad Boston team, at least defensively, right? Like, so I'm not prioritizing Ottawa necessarily here tonight, but they have been using that Pinto Amadio line as the shutdown line, and it's actually been pretty good. like expected goals and goals against hovering around 2. Like that's better than the league average, a lot better than league average actually. So that kind of frees Ottawa 1 and 2 to go up against the depth from Boston. It's like there's just really not a whole lot there. Brady Tkachuk is projecting well here tonight. I think he's the 4th highest winger projected on the board tonight. He always makes a lot of sense as a one-off. It's not that bad of a power play spot either. Like I mentioned it on Tuesday. Ottawa's been drawing the most power plays for a while now. 3.7 power play opportunities per game over the last 5 weeks. The next closest team is Florida, and they're about a half power play per game behind them. If you want to go back all the way to January 1st, Ottawa's at 3.3 power play opportunities per game. That's a quarter power play more than the next closest team. They draw more power play opportunities than any other team, and by a fairly wide margin. Like it's not really that close. And, after Boston's first 30 games of the season, they were taking a lot of penalties. They kind of slacked off a little bit, but that's a team that's been taking more penalties of late as well. Like, top 5 in the league for most penalties taken over the last 5 weeks. Like if Ottawa gets 3, 4, 5 power play opportunities here tonight against a Bruins penalty kill that has been largely pretty bad all season, I think this is a decent spot for that top power play unit. The question is just what you do with them. Like, I'm not a big Dylan Cousins fan, but the guy's 4,800 playing top 6 minutes with top power play time in a really good power play spot, right? So, like, you can 2-man him and Batherson for 10,400. That's pretty reasonable to me. You can even add in, Brady Tkachuk. It's an 18,000 and change stack. I think something like that is pretty reasonable. Tim Stützle, like he's not a great per minute DFS guy, but Stützle plays 21 minutes a game. You know what I mean? Including power play, shorthanded, empty net. It's still lots of opportunities to score against a team that has just not been good defensively this year, whether at 5-on-5 or on the penalty kill. Like I'm not huge on Ottawa specifically here tonight, but I do think that there are reasons to play them. Like a Tkachuk one-off, like I said, is always in play. Like Cousins and Batherson as a 2-man isn't that expensive. If you want to do like a Stützle, Tkachuk, Cousins, three-man power play stack, I think that's fine. Like, Ottawa has a 3.1 total. They're heavily favored over the Bruins. This Boston team is bad. I kind of like the Sens here. I haven't made my lineup. I don't think I'm prioritizing Ottawa, but this is a pretty good matchup that I don't want to just kind of skate past here because this is not a good Boston team.
Oh, yeah. I mean, like, I don't want to full stack any of these even strength lines. If it's going to be anything, it's going to be some sort of power play stack built around Brady Tkachuk. Like, none of these lines even strength, but who knows? Boston is atrocious, so could be the ale. Clayton was sending me a funny message. Tampa Bay Lightning with a 3.2 total heading into Philadelphia. The Flyers have a 2.7 total. Yeah, I can't do anything about the rabbit. My wife puts up these decorations. If I take it down, she's going to kill me in my sleep. So unless you want that to happen, the rabbit's staying through Easter. Kucherov wasn't at practice this morning. I didn't see an update if they said he was in or out. Game time decision. Yeah, I would assume it's an illness. It's not an injury. So,
yeah, but man, like some of the illnesses that have been going around, guys have been out for like 7 days, 10 days. Like Patrick Laine just came back after missing like 4 games or something like that. So,
yeah, so they practiced this morning or at morning skate. It was Gensel, Point, Paul, Hagel, Sorelli, Gergensens, Gonclaves, Gord, Bjorkstrand. Like, it's kind of hard to say what I want to do with Tampa because if Kucherov does play, that top line is 23,000. And it's just like I don't have interest in full stacking a $23,000 line in single entry. It is a really good power play matchup, though. So the problem is there. If Kucherov plays, that would take Hagel off the top power play. if Kucherov doesn't play, that really hurts the power play. So you're kind of between a rock and a hard place here. Anthony Cirelli and Brandon Hagel have good numbers with everybody this season, except Zemgus Girgensons. So it's just like, what do you really want to do here? Like, Point and Gensel without Kucherov isn't great. So it's kind of like maybe I just go to that third line as a filler. Gord Bjorkstrand, Gonclaves at 9,900 if you're looking to power play stack Edmonton or something like that. So like it's really hard what to say to do with Tampa because Kucherov is obviously their most important offensive player, and a lot changes depending whether he's in and out. Even like I still think it'd just be Tampa 3 for me. Like if Kucherov's in, I'm fine with a one-off Kucherov, you know, as long as he doesn't look like he's on death's door during warm-up, you know what I mean? But again, like it's going to be hard to really say what I want to do unless I know Kucherov's in or out. On the Flyers side, they mixed up their lines here. They're going Cates, Forrester, Konechny, and then Brink, Paling, Lixell. They're keeping Michkov, Couturier, Tippett together. That is the line that I would have the most interest in. They've been pretty good in a 110-minute sample. We'll have to see, you know, how they match up. It doesn't really matter to me. I would prefer to play the Philly second line than, you know, the Florida second line. That's famous last words. But they're fully correlated. Tampa's penalty kill is all right. Not like that the Flyers have a power play worth a damn, but if I'm going to play anything on the Flyers side, it's Tippett, Michkov, Couturier. Cates, Forrester, Konechny is somewhat interesting. They've only played 50 minutes together this season. I doubt it's been 50 minutes in a row. So it's kind of hard to take that sample with any grain of salt. So like, I don't mind them, but I prefer Couturier, Michkov, Tippett.
Yeah, I'll start on the Tampa side. When I started this slate, I didn't really have a ton of interest in the Lightning just because the Flyers have actually been pretty good defensively. You know, the penalty kill has largely been fine. Like, you know, they have their ebbs, their ups and downs that typically any penalty kill does during the season, but their penalty kill has generally been fine, at least since like Christmas. The problem is Rasmus Ristolainen is out tonight, and I know he used to be a punching bag, but since getting to Philadelphia, he's been probably the Flyers' best defensive defenseman for like the last 3 years, and has probably been their best defensive defenseman this season. And you take him out of the lineup, like Cam York's been struggling. Travis Sanheim's been really struggling. Like that doesn't seem to be getting talked about very much, but he's not been good. You know, Jamie Drysdale's been better, but there's no one that can really directly replace what Ristolainen does. So like I kind of have a little bit of interest in Tampa. I think for me, it's that Hagel, Cirelli, Girgensons line. I would probably leave Girgensons off of it. You know what I mean? Like he just doesn't do a whole lot. But if Kucherov is out, Hagel and Cirelli might end up 1-2 in ice time for the Lightning here tonight. You know, Hagel's typically right behind Kucherov for ice time per game anyway. And then, you know, Gensel and Point really haven't done a whole lot without Kucherov. Gensel and Point are at 2.5 expected goals, 1.8 actual goals per 60 at 5-on-5 this season. He really makes that top line go. And without him, I have more interest in the second line, like Hagel, Cirelli, and Girgensons. Like I said, I'd probably leave Girgensons off. Maybe you want to throw on Bjorkstrand. So I'm not sure Girgensons last the whole game there. Bjorkstrand at least would be on the top power play unit if Kucherov is out. So I kind of have interest in Tampa 2 here. I think like the matchup is honestly fine going up against the Flyers, especially without Ristolainen in the lineup. On the Flyers side, I think it's that I don't really like the Forster Cates Konechny line, but like we always say, this is a line that's perfectly correlated at home at 14,700, and Cates and Konechny are probably going to get 20 plus minutes each. It's a lot of ice time. It's perfectly correlated ice time for a very reasonable price. And, they're coming in with a little bit of negative leverage, but it's nothing serious. 3.1% top two stack, 5.1% ownership. Again, 14,700. It's a mid-price stack, but they're closer to filler than a filler type stack than they are to anything else. I think Tippett, Mitchkov, and Couturier is probably their best 5-on-5 line as this lineup is currently constructed. But the fact that Konechny, Forster, and Cates are perfectly correlated, and that Cates and Konechny will probably get the most ice time of any of their forwards that are widely in that direction. So for me, it's Cates, Forster, Konechny on that side. But honestly, it's that Hagel-Cirelli duo that I have the most interest in this game.
Yep. St. Louis Blues with a 2.9 total. Heading into Pittsburgh, the Penguins have a 2.7. Pittsburgh going Crosby, Rust, Raquel, Malkin, Tomasino, Heinen, Hayes, Benstrom, and I'm not even gonna do the guy a disservice by trying to pronounce his name. Blues going Kyrou, Holloway, Shen, Thomas, Buchnevich, Neighbors, Bolduc, Sundqvist, Joseph. This is an interesting one. The Kyrou, Holloway, Shen line, 15,100, 5.4% top two stack, 12.8% projected ownership. They've switched up their power play, so that line isn't fully correlated anymore. You get 2 of the 3 guys on the top unit. Their creation numbers have been sliding for a while now. The actual goals are still decent, but there was a time that their expected goals per 60 was up above 3. It's down to 2.4. I know it's a really good 5-on-5 matchup, but the top line is in a really good matchup as well, and they're coming in at 4%. Only $700 more, 15.8. They have 2.9 expected goals per 60, 3.9 actual. They're going to see a fair share of that Crosby line. They're below league average defensively. Pittsburgh doesn't have a good penalty kill. You get Thomas Buchnevich on the top unit. Cam Fowler's back in the lineup. So, for me, it would be the Blues Buchnevich line. Those guys get good minutes. If you want to eat the chalk with that St. Louis second line, go ahead. There isn't much to that Pittsburgh middle six. But again, I'm going to take the lower ownership, take the heavy minutes, take the 2 guys on the top power play unit. A line that has historically been very good. So for me, it's Thomas Buchnevich. Neighbors, if you need a filler or a super cheap 2-man, like 2-man of Bolduc, Sundqvist, if your power play stacking some expensive stuff is fine, not running out to play them, but just giving you some very cheap 2-mans that play decent together. So on the Pittsburgh side, in a nutshell, I like Pittsburgh 1. But since Jim Montgomery has taken over, this team has been pretty good defensively 5-on-5. Their issue is killing penalties. They don't take a ton, and Pittsburgh's power play really isn't that good. So if you want to play Pitt 1, I think that's fine. But in the grand scheme of things at 19.3, right, you have the Sharks for cheaper. Minnesota, we'll talk about, is $2,100 cheaper. You have Edmonton, not too much more expensive. You know what I mean? You have Vegas in that range. So they're kind of hard to prioritize for me. I get it. If for some reason they score on the power play, if for some reason they get on the power play, they may score, which would be a feat for the Penguins power play. But for me, my favorite line in this game is Thomas Buchnevich, Neighbors.
Yeah. I think Pitt 1 kind of has to be in play here. Just almost like process of elimination, right? If Kucherov isn't in, then Tampa 1 as currently constructed is not in play, obviously. I said I'm not really in on Florida 1. I'm in more on the power play guys. Definitely not in on Toronto 1. We'll get to Edmonton in a second. Ottawa, I'm in on the power play guys. There just aren't a lot of 5-on-5 lines in that expensive price range that I necessarily like here. Pittsburgh's that top line is at 3.6 goals per 60 minutes since the Four Nations break. Like, they've been scoring pretty well. One thing you kind of do have to give it at least to the top line is that they're not mailing in the season. So they haven't really been that bad at 5-on-5. And, they all play 20 minutes. The power play hasn't been great, but it's been like slightly above average, basically going back to Christmas, which, like, at an above average Pittsburgh top power play in any meaningful sample is pretty notable, because that hasn't been the case for like 3 years. And the St. Louis penalty kill, you can make an argument this has been the worst penalty kill in the second half of the season. If you go back the last 5 weeks, second most goals against per 60 minutes on the PK, only San Jose has been worse. Sorry. If you go back to January 1st, again, second most goals against on the PK, only to San Jose. If you go back just to the Four Nations break, it's only been 9 games, but fifth most goals against. Like, there's no sample since Christmas that makes San Jose look good, other than a 1-game sample. If you pick up one game where they happen to not give up a goal against, like, this is a great power play spot. Like, Pittsburgh could very easily go 1-for-1 or 1-for-2 on the power play here. Not because they have a great power play, but because St. Louis's penalty kill is so bad. So I honestly don't mind Pitt 1 here. I really don't. I think of the expensive lines, they're near the top for me. Like I said, I'd rather play them than Tampa. I'd rather play them than Toronto. I'd rather play them than Ottawa, even if I do like the Ottawa, power play stack better. But the even strength lines, like Pitt 1 has to be up there for me, just because there's not a whole lot else that I want to play in that range. Pitt 2, you can kind of take it or leave it. And Evgeny Malkin at this stage of his career, I think I'm kind of out on the depth. For me, be Pitt 1 or nothing. But it's the St. Louis side I have the most interest in. And I agree with you on Thomas Buchnevich and Neighbors. Their last 20 games, 3.1 expected goals, 3.9 actual goals per 60 minutes. Thomas has been like pretty close to a point per game player going back a few months now. Not worried about any of the 5-on-5 matchups. St. Louis's penalty kill is atrocious. Pittsburgh's is bad. And, you do get Thomas Buchnevich on top power play. They'll play like probably at least 19, if not 20 plus minutes. So for me, I think this game is about St. Louis 1, but I do think there are reasons to play Pitt 1 here, especially where, they do, like, for all the slagging we do at Pittsburgh, they have the third highest top 2 stack percentage on the night here tonight, with an projected ownership under 8%. That's pretty good. So I really don't mind Pitt 1 here, but this is a St. Louis game for me.
Yeah, I mean, I like Pitt 1. It's just like, if I was making more than one lineup, they would probably make it into the mix.
Can I ask you a question? Have you played the Pittsburgh Penguins yet this year?
Yes.
Like a top line stack?
This season, yes. In the year 2025, no.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's all right. Well, I wasn't expecting a yes, because you don't strike me as somebody that's been too high on the Penguins basically at any point this season.
I have been a notorious Pitt 1 fader since I started doing shows independently in like 2018. Okay. It's just like, they drive me nuts. And maybe it's a bad bias, but I don't know. They're master tankers. They hide it better than any other team in the league. They'll come out to like a 3-2 lead with like 4 minutes left and just give up like 2 atrocious goals. It's like they stay in the game until the end. But anyway, Vegas Golden Knights with a 3.6 total heading into Columbus. Our Columbus Blue Jackets, 2.8 total. Vegas going back to the Tanner Pearson experiment. Eichel, Stone, Pearson, Hurdle, Dorofeyev, Saad, Riley Smith, Roy, Olofsson. Columbus going Fantilli, Marchenko, Voronkov, Jenner, Johnson, Olivier. They took Voronkov off the top unit and put Boone Jenner on. It's not a good power play matchup anyway, but like that's all the sads for me right now. On the Columbus side, Fantilli, Marchenko, Voronkov, 16-2. I think they've been good at 5-on-5. Like I said, it's not a good power play matchup, Vegas just doesn't take penalties. They're one of the lowest in the league. It's just not a great matchup for them, whether it's the Hurdle line or the Eichel line or whomever they go out against. It's just not the best matchup at 16,200. Again, if you want to play them in your MME mix, they're in that mid-range. I think they're fine as a mid-range stack. If you're making, 10 to, 100 lineups or whatever, that second line is a bit more interesting. And I know it feels a little chasey because Olivier has 5 goals in his last 2 games, but he still is only 2,900. And that line as a whole is 11-8. And, they've been decent together. Like Jenner and Johnson have played very well together since Boone Jenner came back. Now you get 2 of the 3 on the top power play unit. Again, not a great power play spot, but at 11-8, I think they're fine as a filler. If you're looking to get a little bit more expensive, they get decent minutes. You're not going to expect a goal from Olivier every night, but he is one of those players who does contribute. So 11-8, I'm good with Columbus 2. I'd be more likely to get them in my lineup than Columbus 1 in single entry. Again, I think both are kind of MME. The Vegas side is more interesting to me. Again, the Pearson experiment, I worry that it's not going to last because they've been yo-yoing him all over the lineup. Olsen went up. If they start off poorly, I think Barbashev moves up if he's back in the lineup. I'm fine. It's a good power play matchup, so I'm fine with Eichel, Stone, Pearson, but I prefer Hurdle, Dorofei of Saad. They're $1,900 cheaper. They've been very, very good. 3.9 expected goals for, 3.9 actual. They're controlling the play really well. There's no matchup concerns for me. If you do want to make it super expensive, you can lead off Saad and add in Eichel. That makes it 20,400. Same price as Florida. I think I'd rather play that Vegas combo. So for me, Vegas 2, Vegas power play, and the Columbus second line.
Yeah. I don't hate Columbus 1 here tonight. There's, 16,200. I don't like losing Voronkov off the top power play. The thing is that power play has been dog shit for a long time now, right? Like I'm happy that Voronkov has been able to hang on as long as he can. I think the last 6 weeks, the power play is at 7% clip. Like that is honestly, even like
the Flyers would be better.
Yeah, I was gonna say even like the Penguins at their worst, like a year ago, were at like 11 or 12%. Like 7% for 6 weeks that is something else. You still get 2 out of the 3 guys on the top power play unit, and it's 16,200, right? Like it's not like this line is 19,800 like they were a couple weeks ago at times, right? So I don't mind them as a mid-price line, honestly. And like, they've actually been pretty good since the Four Nations. Like they've been good generally by goal scoring since they got put together. They've been together for over 2 months now. But since the Four Nations, they've actually been carrying the play. 68 shot attempts for, 56 against per 60 minutes. 2.9 expected goals for, 2.4 against. So, like, they're actually outplaying the opposition. They're not just trying to create a handful of high-quality chances every game. So I don't mind Columbus 1 here. I think Columbus 2 is very much in play for the reasons, as you mentioned. Johnson and Jenner on the top power play. They'll probably play 17 to 19 minutes, the 2 of them. Olivier a little bit less. They're a filler stack that you can put in with, if you're playing Pitt 1 or Edmonton 1 or something like that. They're a legit filler stack you can put in with them. That line has been good. 68 shot attempts for, 53 against in 85 minutes together. Like they've been pretty good since being assembled. So I don't mind either line, honestly, but Vegas is my favorite side. Vegas 2 is my favorite line at 16,300. Hurdle, Dorofei, Saad. They've been really good, man. Over 60 minutes together, 92 shot attempts, 3.8 expected goals, 3.7 actual goals per 60 minutes. That is just wildly good offensively. I've said it over and over that I thought Brandon Saad was actually playing well in St. Louis. It just didn't seem like he was a good fit for them at that time. He's fit in very well with Vegas and on that second line. Saad is averaging 2 shots per game since he got to Vegas. So like, it's not a high shot total, but it's not nothing, especially considering you're not getting top power play time from him. The thing is, like, Hurldorf, Fayette, Saad, 16,300. I think I'd probably rather just go play Columbus 1. You know what I mean? Like, it's just kind of the way that I think about it. So I think for me, if I play anything, it would probably be Vegas 1. Eichel, Stone, Pearson. Like, I have the same concerns you do about Pearson being moved off. Like, if Columbus is up 2-0 halfway through the second period, we could see Barbashev up there. Maybe they at times they put Hurdle on the top line. I do worry about stuff like that, but we've slagged Tanner Pearson, but you got to give him credit. The top line with Pearson has actually been pretty good when they've been there. So at 18,200, 7% top 2 stack, ownership projecting coming in under 5%. Eichel has been shooting the puck a fair bit since we came back from the Four Nations, 3 shots per game. I'm not really worried about any of the 5-on-5 matchups from the Columbus side. The Vegas power play has been really, really good since Noah Hannafin took over, both by shot generation and goal generation. And the Columbus penalty kill is not that good. So for me, I think it's Vegas 1 I prefer, but both Vegas lines are very much in play. In fact, I think there are 4 playable lines in this game.
Yeah. I'm also really good with the Vegas power play stack. It's a really, really good power play spot. Edmonton Oilers with a 3.1 total heading into Newark, New Jersey. If you watch Dude Where's My Car, not as bad as Hoboken, New Jersey, but still pretty bad. 2.8 total for the Devils. Edmonton going McDavid, Hyman, Nugent Hopkins, Draisaitl, Arvidsson, Skinner. Devils going Meyer, Hischer, Nason, Bratt, Glass, Holla, Mercer, Palat, Tatar. I don't love the Edmonton side here. New Jersey's generally been good defensively. They've generally had a good penalty kill. However, that top line is fully correlated, coming in at 3.2%. And you might say I'm a broken record, but you're goddamn right I am. Low-owned McDavid is things of nightmares. And, Siegenthaler's out for the season. Dougie's out here. Siegenthaler is their best penalty killer, at least on the defenseman. So, and Edmonton's power play has been rolling. I don't know, man. I like Edmonton 1 here. Their top 2 stacks under 10%. Like, the Sharks are more than double that, which is just asinine to me. But, it's not the best 5-on-5 matchup. But again, Connor McDavid's matchup proof. We touted him a few years ago going into Boston against Bergeron. 3% going into New Jersey without their best defensive defenseman. Possibly not Markstrom tonight. I don't know. I'm in on Edmonton 1. Edmonton 2 is a bit interesting. Skinner, his role is weird on this team. I think if he sticks on this line, he can be fine. I do worry that he won't stick. And also the price at 16.7. At that point, I'm going to Columbus 1, I'm going to Vegas 2. I'm even going to the Devils top line here. So it would be just Edmonton 1 for me. But again, if you are doing something for the power play, you got to get Draisaitl in. That dude's just a machine this season. If you want to leave off Nugent Hopkins, add in Draisaitl for something super expensive, there's plenty of value on the slate. I'm good with that. So Edmonton 1, Edmonton power play. On the Devils side, I think I'm good with the Meyer, Hischer, Nason line. They've been very good this season. Again, finishing has been a concern. But, man, I've watched a lot of Stewie Skinner lately, and his rebound control has been atrocious. And this line creates a bunch. So, Timo's one of those guys who'll get to the dirty areas, too. So if there's, rebound issues tonight from Skinner, I'm good with Devils 1. Again, I'm more interested in a Vegas second line, Columbus. If you want a filler, Glassbrat Holla has been pretty good. I don't know, man. Cody Glass looks pretty good on that line. You get Bratt on the top power play unit. You're going to get bottom 6 matchups of the Oilers. Like Henrique, Podkolzin, Brown, like maybe they could be fine, but like Perry, Kapanen, and Max Jones is just 3 random guys they found like in the bathroom. So like I'm good with Glass, Bratt, Haula as a filler. I think I kind of prefer Columbus too, but like half a dozen of one, 6 of another. Like I'm good with the Jersey second line. So for me, it's both top lines. I prefer Edmonton just because of the ownership, but there are some filler stuff you should pay attention to.
Yeah. To your point about Edmonton, I went and checked the ownership projections. There is not a single Edmonton forward projected for 5% ownership or higher here tonight.
That's horrifying.
Yes. And like, listen, I get it. Like maybe McDavid hasn't lived up to prior seasons this year by production. Maybe Zach Hyman, he's not going to repeat 57 goals or whatever it was from last year. All the same, since Hyman returned from injury on December 5th, it's like half the season. It's 39 games. Since he returned from injury, Edmonton is second by shots per minute, third by expected goals per minute, second by actual goals per minute. The only team that's been better is Dallas, and it's like 0.02 goals per 60 minutes. Dallas has been better. Edmonton's been one of the best offensive teams in the league for over 3 months now. And by the way, that's with them shooting like a league average shooting percentage. Could you imagine if they're actually like a top 8 shooting percentage or something like that? They'd be easily the best offensive team in the league.
Which they can be.
That's what I mean. It's like this team is probably getting unlucky to some sort of degree, and they're still the second highest scoring team in the league over the last half of the season. Like I do like the Edmonton side here. I was looking at New Jersey's top line numbers. Like Meyer and Hischier, since returning from the Four Nations, they played over 100 minutes together. Basically, league average defensively, 2.3 expected goals against per 60, 2.5 actual goals against. Like that's okay, but like I said, that's league average. The Mercer line or Mercer this season, whenever he's not playing with Jack Hughes or Nico Hischier, league average by expected goals against per 60. The New Jersey penalty kill is on a bit of a slide since the Four Nations, which I think makes sense when you consider that they don't have Siegenthaler and Jack Hughes has been hurt for four games and change now. I really do like Edmonton 1. When I look at all the expensive lines on the board here tonight, assuming Kucherov doesn't play, you have Florida. I'd rather play Edmonton than Florida. You have Toronto. I'd definitely rather play Edmonton than Toronto. You have Ottawa. I would rather play Edmonton than Ottawa. You have Pittsburgh. I'd rather play Edmonton than Pittsburgh. Like this is probably my top expensive line on the board here tonight. The problem I have is leaving Leon Draisaitl off. You know what I mean? That's the issue. Is like Draisaitl could have a 60 goal, 60 assist season. Like leaving him off a stack feels like running things really thin. So maybe you do like a McDavid Draisaitl 2-man, or you do like Draisaitl Hyman, something like that. I really, really do like the Edmonton side here, and it's more that every single forward is projected under 5% ownership, and that's something that really appeals to me on a 9-game slate. On the New Jersey side, it's the top line. Listen, I'm glad Jesper Bratt had that 3-point game the other night. I agree. They look fine with Cody Glass. I don't think that's going to be a good long term, especially with Eric Haula there. For me, it's about Meyer, Hischier, and Nason. Meyer and Hischier, I said they're at league average by defensively since the Four Nations. Offensively, 3.4 expected goals per 60. I think they are a very fine mid-price line, Meyer, Hischier, and Nason, but I like the Edmonton side better.
Yeah. New York Rangers with a 2.7 total heading into Minnesota. The Mild have a 2.8 total. Minnesota going Boldy, Zuccarello, Rossi, Hartman, Hinostroza, Foligno, Nyquist, Gaudreau, Marcus Johansson. Rangers going JT Miller, Mika Zibanejad, Alexis Lafreniere, Panarin, Trocheck, Will Cooley, Kreider, Carrick, Brett Berard. Okay. This is like an interesting game from an ownership standpoint, and I don't particularly love it. Boldy, Zuccarello, Rossi, 11.7% top two stack, 16.8% projected ownership at 17-2. Now, they don't go out against top comp. It doesn't really matter who the fuck top comp is on the Rangers. They all suck defensively. It's just this ownership is a bit high for me. They're fully correlated. I just, 3 expected goals for per 60, 3.7 actual, 244-minute sample. They're fine, right? I don't know. For me, I have a mental block playing Minnesota without Kaprizov. And, they're not very good defensively, this top line. And if for some reason they do go out against Miller, Zibanejad, Cooley, because if, they treat the Panarin line as the top line, I don't know. Like Lafreniere up on that top line makes that line a little bit interesting. I do have concerns, but again, like the Rangers are atrocious defensively. The only thing that could save them is Igor Shesterkin, and that does give me pause at almost 17%. Like I'd rather just save a couple bucks, go play Vegas, go play New Jersey, go play Columbus. They're fine. Don't get me wrong. They're in a really good spot. The Rangers suck. But for me personally, in my single entry, I don't think I'll be eating that ownership. I don't have too much interest in the depth of Minnesota here. There's just nothing there for me that I like. On the Rangers side, I don't have a ton of interest, but if that Gaudreau line does go out against Panarin, that would match up the Boldy, Zuccarello, Rossi line against Miller, Zibanejad, Cooley, or Lafreniere, excuse me. That Minnesota top line, 3.2 expected goals against per 60. They don't have a good penalty kill. You get JT Miller and Zibanejad on the top power play unit. I'm not running out to play them because they're 16-5, and there's a lot of lines that we just mentioned in the 16s that I prefer to play. But that would be a line in 20 max that I would have some of, just because that top line for Minnesota isn't great defensively. They have an awful penalty kill. The Rangers power play is still fine. So it would be the JT Miller, Zibanejad, Lafreniere line and the Minnesota top line.
Yeah. I'll start on the Minnesota side. It's just, you want me to play chalk Minnesota Wild, and I'm just kind of shaking my head. Like, I don't think so, Tim. With that said, the top line's been bad off defensively. Like, you're bang on about that. 3.3 expected goals against, 64 shot attempts against per 60 minutes. They've been bailed out at times by their goaltending, but they've not been good defensively. But they've been pretty good offensively. In 245 minutes together, 5-on-5, 60 shot attempts, 3 expected goals, 3.7 actual goals per 60. That's what worries me, is like, I don't like playing like Islanders 14% chalk at home with a line that has like 2.4 expected goals and 2.5 actual goals per 60. Like, that's stuff like that is when I'm like, easy pass, I'll see you later. This has actually been a pretty good offensive line. That's what's kind of giving me a little bit of pause. And there are lines in that price range to go play. There's not a lot that are perfectly correlated on the power play. We'll get to San Jose in a second, but like Vegas 1 is not perfectly correlated. Either of the Rangers lines are not. New Jersey is not. Vegas 2 is not. Columbus 1 is not. You know what I mean? Like, now we're getting into the 15Ks. Like, that's basically the only line in that price range that is perfectly correlated on the power play. So I don't really love the idea of playing super chalk Minnesota, but this is a perfectly correlated line that's being very good offensively at 5-on-5 at 17,200. Like, at a certain point, you do have to kind of consider them. They do have, what is it, the fourth highest? Yeah, fourth highest top 2 stack on the night. Like, there is a reason why they're super chalk. I have no problem one way or the other. If you want to play them because, like we said, heavy minutes, perfectly correlated at home with a decent price, play them. If you want to fade them because of the chalk, maybe they come in closer to 20% in some single entry stuff, I think that's fine too. In my stacks, in my games, I imagine I'm going to be fading them, but I haven't made a firm decision one way or another. I will say, I can't believe I'm saying this, I think I'm more interested in the Rangers side, and it's just because of the Minnesota penalty kill. It has honestly been one of the worst for it's wild, man. It's been one of the worst in the league for 3 years now. If you go back over the last, half season, their last 40 games, second most goals against per 60 minutes on the penalty kill. If you go back just to January 1st, seventh most goals against if you go back 5 weeks, fourth most goals against if you go back just to the Four Nations break, fourth most goals against. This team has just been bad on the penalty kill. And you're right, the Rangers power play has still been fine, even with Adam Fox. It's more 5-on-5 where they've lost some play. So, if you want to put a Zibanejad Miller 2-man in there or something like that, I think that's fine. If you want to pair Panarin with JT Miller or something like that, I think that's kind of the approach I would take. I'm approaching the Rangers I'm approaching the Sens here tonight. All the secondary and ancillary players. Will Cooley might be the only guy I would consider because he's actually playing well. It's one of the few Rangers that actually is. But otherwise, I'm treating the Rangers like I'm treating the Sens. I'm focusing, and the Panthers to a different extent. I'm focusing solely on the power play guys, and I think I kind of like that side better.
Yeah. Washington Capitals with a 2.7 total heading into Los Angeles. The Kings have a 2.9. Washington going Ovechkin, Wilson, Strome, Dubois, Protas, McMichael. Kings going Fiala, Byfield, Laferriere, Kempe, Kuzmenko, Kopitar, Moore, Fogle, Deneau. On the Washington side, I don't have a ton of interest in Ovechkin, Wilson, Strome at 19.3. I'd much rather go play Pittsburgh 1. They're going to see, that Kopitar Kempe line, which with Kuzmenko has been fine defensively. It's a small sample. Kopitar hasn't been great defensively this season, but Ovechkin, Wilson, Strome just don't play well together. And they're, 19.3, same price as Pittsburgh 1. So I'm out on Washington 1. If you want to one off Ovechkin, obviously that's fine. Washington 2, I would have a little more interest in Dubois, Protas, McMichael. They've played well together in 131 minutes. The issue I'm running into is they're going to see that Byfield line, which has just been ridiculous on the defensive end. So really, I'm probably out on Washington here. If anything, I would get to some of that second line and some Ovechkin. So the King side is a bit more interesting to me. If you want to play Fiala, Byfield, Laferriere, I think that's fine. They're 15-3. They've played well. For me, it's Kempe, Kuzmenko, Kopitar. They need to think of a better name for the obvious nickname of that line. They need to think of a better one. But they're 15-5, coming in at 1.4%. Ovechkin, Wilson, Strome, not good defensively. Washington's defensive numbers have been sliding for a while now. They're fully correlated on the power play. So for me, it's LA 1. If you want to go to LA 3 as a filler, 13-4, it's a little pricey, but they would fit with Pittsburgh's, the Vegas's, that kind of stuff. So for me, it's LA 1, some LA 3, and Washington 2.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned Washington's defensive numbers because I was looking for the Kings' defensive numbers since Drew Doughty got there, and I was actually ended up being more interested in Washington's. Drew Doughty returned towards the end of January, and since that point, Washington is at 2.6 expected goals against per 60 minutes at 5-on-5, 2.7 actual goals against per 60 minutes at 5-on-5. Those numbers are worse than the San Jose Sharks. It's not a huge sample, obviously. It's only 15 games, but yes, Washington's defensive numbers basically for the last 20 games have been getting worse and worse and worse. I don't really have a ton of interest in Washington, at 19,300. If I'm playing a road team in that price range here tonight, maybe I go to like some sort of Florida power play stack. More likely, I just go to Edmonton. That's just kind of the way that I look at it. Like the Kings have generally had a good penalty kill basically since American Thanksgiving. Washington's power play has been so. That Caps top line, Ovechkin and Strome really haven't been that great at 5-on-5. Like Ovechkin's getting like empty net goals and stuff like that. Certainly he's piling up the shots. He's fine as a one-off if you want or something. But if I'm playing an expensive line on the road, like I said, I'm going to Edmonton or I'm going to a Florida power play or something like that. For me, this is more about the Kings side. Charlie Lindgren's starting. It's not Logan Thompson. So if you're worried about the goaltending, that's one thing. And the other thing is like Kempe, Kuzmenko, Kopitar, still a perfectly correlated top line, right? Like they're basically in that basket with Philly where like I don't really have a ton of faith in the line, but anytime you have a perfectly correlated line at home under 16,000, this Kings top line's at 15,500. I do think you have to consider them. I would probably rather play the Kings top line than the Flyers top line here tonight. And for a mid-price stack, I think you really do have to consider them just because of their roles and because of their correlation. Other than that, it would be Fiala, Byfield, Laferriere. What worries me is that Fiala and Laferriere have been getting their ice time cut. Obviously, Laferriere got kicked off the power play. Fiala's been at like 15, 16 minutes a game since Kuzmenko got there. That's a little bit of a concern for me. So I think for me, the only line I really have interest in this game is Kempe, Kuzmenko, Kopitar.
Yeah, same. Oh, let's get to this circus event as the late hammer. Chicago Blackhawks with a 2.9 total. Heading into San Jose, the Sharks have a 3.1. If you combine the best players on this team and made 4 lines, they wouldn't even be a playoff team. So have fun with this. Celebrini, Toffoli, Eklund, Will Smith, Wenberg, Congraf. On the Chicago side, Teravainen, Donato, Mikheyev, Bedard, Dickinson, Doc. The Sharks have the highest top 2 stack on the night. Celebrini, Toffoli, Eklund, 18,500, 23.6% top 2 stack, 27% ownership. I mean, it's an elite 5-on-5 matchup. They're fully correlated. It's not the best power play matchup. I've been a Shark slappy with Celebrini for a while. There's 2 things that worry me. No Wallman. Mac Celebrini expected goals drops pretty hard without Wallman. And it's not the best power play matchup. And, they have a 5-forward power play. Can't imagine it's been as good without Wallman. That being said, this is the best 5-on-5 matchup on the board. I don't even care that Dickinson's on the line with Bedard and Doc. They're just going to be atrocious defensively. It's just a matter if you want to eat the ownership. I honestly don't know what the fuck to do with the Sharks here. I think if I'm going to try to play the Sharks, I'm honestly going to try to get different here and go to Sharks 2 and leave off Groff and add in Celebrini, because you are getting Wenberg Smith on the top power play unit. That line's coming in at 4.6%. I know it's scary to leave off Toffoli and Eklund. Bacon's going nuts, but I'm going to try to get different. You could full power play stack, but again, it's not the best power play stack. I'm fine with the Sharks top line, but I will go to some sort of off-man stack like Celebrini, Toffoli, Wenberg, Celebrini, Eklund, Smith, something like that. Try to get a little bit of lower ownership in a high ownership game. Honestly, I think the Sharks or the Hawks side is more interesting to me. And it's that Teravainen, Donato, Mikheyev line. Because let's be honest, the Sharks are atrocious defensively as well. And they don't have a good penalty kill at all. Now, the Hawks power play isn't as good without Seth Jones. But you do get 2 of the 3 guys, Donato and Teravainen, on the top power play unit. Something you could do is leave off Mikheyev, add in Bedard. That'll make that line 17-3, fully correlated, still cheaper than the Sharks top line. That is, if I'm going to stack the Sharks or stack the Hawks, it's either going to be Chicago 2 or some sort of Hawks power play stack. Now, that's where I'm at on the Hawks side. The Sharks, like, you're gonna have to make a decision. Like, chalk Sharks on a 9-game slate is insane to me. I like them in a nutshell. It's just like they're not really good. So I don't know. This game sucks. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, the Sharks aren't a good team. The top line is really good. You know what I mean? Like, it's kind of, I'm wearing a Montreal Canadiens hat right now. It's kind of like the Montreal Canadiens. The Montreal Canadiens have a very good top line. The rest of the forwards, don't ask me about them. San Jose's top line, 3.2 expected goals, 69 shot attempts per 60 minutes since the Four Nations Cup. Eklund and Celebrini typically play 20 plus minutes. Even Toffoli's been getting close to like 18 minutes since they got rid of Zetterlund. I agree with you. I don't think I would just like stack San Jose 1 and then just walk away. Like, either I make some sort of broken stack, as you mentioned, like Smith, Wenberg, Celebrini or something like that, or just straight up 5-man power play stack. Like, it's 27,800, I think, for all 5 guys. It's like what, 5,500 a player. It's like, it's not that bad. So that's kind of how I approach San Jose. I would just focus on those guys. Whether you just want to make a 3-man stack or go all the way up to a power play stack, it's not really a great power play spot. Chicago's penalty kill has been sliding since the Four Nations break. I wonder if getting rid of Seth Jones and introducing different defensemen is kind of changing things, like, or maybe it's just a small sample. I don't know, but Chicago's very, very bad at 5-on-5. So, in a nutshell, I really do like San Jose 1. Like, this isn't just, and, sometimes we do get these spots where a top line is, or a line is super chalky and they don't really have a high top 2 stack. That's not the case here. The highest top 2 stack on the night, like higher than Tampa Bay. That tells you what you need to know about Chicago. But I wouldn't just like stack the top line and walk away. Like, because if the Sharks do go nuts, guys like Smith and Wenberg and maybe even Graf are coming along for the ride. So I would figure out some sort of broken stack or just 5-man power play. I'm going to be honest. I think I'm in the other direction. Like, I have more interest in the Sharks than I do in Chicago. Like, because I worry, like, that second line of Teravainen, Donato, Mikheyev, like, they've legitimately been scoring well. They're shooting 25%. Like, I'm waiting for that floor to fall out from under them is kind of the issue. So, like, if you want to the Sharks are taking a lot of penalties. The Chicago power play has been like absolutely god awful since Seth Jones got traded. It's been god awful without Seth Jones all season. And I don't mean like, I mean like Columbus bad, like 7%, power play status, awful without Seth Jones. I think it's 65 shot attempts per 60 minutes on the power play without Seth Jones on the blue line. Like, that's literally like a 5-on-5 line. That's less than the San Jose top line at 5-on-5. That's the Chicago power play. So maybe they get lucky because they get a pile of chances. I kind of doubt it. For me, it's like, if you want to one-off Donato, one-off Teravainen, one-off Bedard, like go ahead. But I'm way more interested in the San Jose side here.
Sure. Let's talk about defensemen. Top of the board, 6K and up, we have Bouchard, Sanderson, Werenski. I still think Werenski is numero uno. I think Sanderson's in a very good spot as well, so I like both of them. Bouchard, I like as well. That 18 minutes was an admiration. He played 26 minutes the other night. I do like him as well. If you're dipping down, obviously Noah Hannafin in the mid-range. I don't mind spending up for these guys, but I think if I'm not spending up, Noah Hannafin's number 1 for me.
Yeah, Zach Werenski is the top projected defenseman. Don't think that'll surprise anybody. Also has the best point per dollar value of the defenseman above 6K, so best play on the board. Don't think that's a surprise to anyone. Yeah, it's weird. Bouchard went from 18.5 minutes to 26.5 minutes, both being regulation games. It is what it is, but yeah, Bouchard's fine. I don't mind Jake Sanderson. in a nutshell, it's 6,300. But when I see Thomas Chabot at 4,700, I almost rather just save the 1,600 and drop down to Chabot. Like him and Luke Hughes, I think make a lot of sense in that mid-price range here tonight. Chris Letang, not really in that bad of a spot, but it's like, why wouldn't you just pay an extra 500 to go play Erik Karlsson? So Luke Hughes, Thomas Chabot, Noah Hannafin, you mentioned him. I think he's in one of the best spots on the board, especially considering he's getting 22 minutes a game, getting top power play time. The power play's been really good with him. So Hannafin, Seth Jones, I think is in that bin. So like Luke Hughes, Chabot, Hannafin, Seth Jones. There's some nice mid-price guys here tonight. For a little bit cheaper, Zach Jones, he's still running the power play. Cam Fowler's back. I'm assuming he's back on the top power play unit. They're both under 4K. Connor Murphy is fine. Jake Middleton, he hasn't smashed yet for Minnesota. He's had some big games. He hasn't had a big game since Jonas Brodin went down, but 25 minutes last game, 27 minutes a couple games before that. So like it's getting ice time. I got to think it's going to come eventually. Chris Tanev is back for Toronto. He's 3K flat. I think he makes a lot of sense for 3K. Like there aren't a lot of really cheap defensemen that I like here tonight. So Tanev at 3K. Nico Mikkola, as long as he stays under 3K, I think he's always in play. Artem Leshunov from Chicago, I think he's still min price. He's looked really good. As good as anybody from Chicago can in his first game, played over 20 minutes, feels like a min-price guy to play. And Nick Jensen for Ottawa looks like he's going to be fine after not taking morning skate. He's only 2,600.
Let's talk about goalies. This isn't a goalie slate that I particularly love. If I happen to love a goalie slate, let me know. I don't think I've liked one this season. If I'm spending up, it is for Ullmark. Don't mind Bob at 7,900, as miserable as that sounds. I do like Kemper at 7,800. Bennington at 7,600 makes some sense to me. If you're spending down, I guess Swayman, but I really don't like the cheaper options here tonight.
Yeah, there's not a whole lot for the cheaper goalies, I admit. Like the cheap-ish goalies like Stellaris at 7,500, I think is fine. Like Igor, 7,500, I think is fine. I guess Charlie Lindgren at 7,600 is okay. Like the Kings do struggle to score, even if Washington's been kind of sliding a little bit defensively. But I think it's Stellaris or Igor in that mid-7 range. Like once you get below that, Georgiev at home to Chicago, Swayman on the road in Ottawa, like maybe Swayman, but I've seen too many like 5 goals against on 29 shot games from Swayman. Like it's kind of like almost like PTSD at this point watching the Boston Bruins play hockey. So there's really not a lot under 7,500 for me. If you paying up, Linus Ullmark, Vasilevsky, as long as he gets to start. I haven't seen a confirmation yet. And I think left wing lock had Jonas Johansson as probable. That might change how I look at the Philadelphia Flyers here tonight. And Philip Gustafsson for Minnesota. I don't really love the home matchup against the Rangers. You always worry about the penalty kill, but Gustafsson under 8K at home, I think he's fine as well.
Yep. We might be back tomorrow. Got to see what the GPPs look like. If not, we'll see you on Saturday. Who are you liking for your hat trick pick?
I really want our boys to pull out a win tonight and stay firmly in that playoff race. So I'm going Kirill, the Thrill, Marchenko.
I'm going to go to one of your favorite players of all time, Andrei Kuzmenko.
That would be nice. See him get a hat trick here tonight. That would
3 goals on 3 shots. There's no other way.
If he gets a hat trick tonight, then we are definitely not having a show tomorrow.
Yeah. Do it. No, just kidding. But depending on what GPPs look like, we could be back tomorrow. If not, we'll see you on Saturday. Good luck, everybody, tonight, and we'll see you in the Discord.
Good luck tonight, everyone.